Good morning to our Joy 1340 listeners again on this Thursday morning. I am Officer Ralph McLean, Milwaukee Police Department. I am the recruiter, and I am out the Office of Community Relations, Engagement, and Recruitment. And I'm here with my co-host.
Yes, sir. My name is Jordan Dickerson. I am one of the recruiters with the City of Milwaukee Fire and Police Commission, and we are back here with episode 18 of The Conversation. And before we even go any further, I just want to let our listeners know that, if you're listening to it and you want to have a chance to be able to watch it also, we do now officially have a YouTube page. You go look up at MKEFPC, and you'll be able to find our I think it was a couple of weeks ago when we had on our special guest, Madi Hernandez. She was the lash artist, the business owner of Ready, Set, Glam. So if you just want to kind of tune in and actually watch it, put a face to the voice that you're listening to over across the airwaves, come check out our YouTube page at MKEFPC.
They get to put a face to the voice.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I don't know if they want to. Well, we also want to mention this morning, as we do always, that if you've ever thought about doing this career, or getting into this career, I should say, this noble profession of protecting and serving the community, and I say that with all sincereness, that's what it's about. We are hiring. The application is posted on the City of Milwaukee Jobs website. And also, Jordan here has a text number just to put out there for anyone that's listening who thought about it or even know someone that's interested. Yeah,
so if you're interested, if you ever thought about it, if you ever had that feeling, or if you know somebody that's interested in either police officer, being a firefighter, being a 911 telecommunicator, they can always text their first and last name and then just put fire, police, or 911 telecommunicator. And you could text it to 414-519-6190. Again, that's 414-519-6190. And we always like to say that it is an actual live text number. Myself and the other recruiter, we actually deal and handle and respond to those text messages. So you're not responding to any AI, as you say, or any bot or George or anything like that.
Excellent, excellent. And now, as they say, on with the show. Here in the studio, we have the pleasure of having Dr. Shakkiah Curtis. Dr. Curtis is a highly accomplished professional with a diverse background in education, business, and entrepreneurship. She graduated from Tennessee State University with a BA in English and later pursued a master's degree in instructional design and organization development from Alverno College. Driven by her passion for success among African-American women entrepreneurs, she went on to achieve a doctorate in business administration with a focus on how emotional intelligence contributes to their achievements. Now, throughout her career, Dr. Curtis has ventured into various entrepreneurial projects spanning fashion, business, and fitness. Her latest endeavor, Spin MKE, stands out as it challenges cultural norms in a boutique fitness by exclusively bringing wellness to communities that have traditionally been left out. It is our distinct pleasure to welcome to the conversation this morning, Dr. Shakkiah Curtis. Welcome.
Good morning. Is it morning?
Yeah, good morning. It's still morning. It's still morning.
It is still morning.
Good morning. Honored. I feel safe to be in here with officers, but also honored. And just the clarity is Shakkiah.
Shakkiah. And I'm happy.
Yes.
I love it because I'm so happy you brought that up. Because when you said it, I was like, is it Shakkiah? And then you said something a little bit different. But I'm happy that you brought it up because I think our name holds power and it holds weight. And I think it's important because sometimes people could be very hesitant about that because they're like, oh, I don't want to come off as rude.
I've dealt with it my whole life. I go in all rooms and they're like, what? And I'm like, thank my mom. It is Shakkiah.
That's a Shakira? Okay,
Shakkiah.
Yep.
Like the car, it's the H that throws people off, the KIAH.
And I love the unique way of the spelling too.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Thanks my mom and my grandma.
Let that be a lesson to y'all. If somebody messed up your name, don't be afraid to correct them. It's all good.
You got to know who you are.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Curtis, thank you for being in the studio with us this morning. It is a pleasure. And you came to my attention first, as I said. I've seen you on the news spot talking about spin MKE. But before we get into that, we want to know a little bit about you. You are from Milwaukee, is that correct?
MKE born. Yeah.
Okay, great. What side of town?
I grew up in Westline, actually. And then we kind of moved around. I left at an early age, so left at 17, came back as an adult. So I now live like Bronzeville, downtown area, but Westline, North Side, that's where I grew up.
Okay, great. How was it growing up around that time?
I look back now and I'm like, it probably was the most unsafe, but as a child, as a teenager, I didn't know, right? I have a twin brother and a little brother. It's a total of 5 of us, but at that time, we were like the three amigos. We were around the whole city at 12 and 13. I mean, from McGovern Park to Washington Park. It was a time in Milwaukee where you didn't understand the different things that were happening. You didn't understand just kind of the systematic communities that were happening. And I just remember it being a joyous time of being with my granny. She raised me, but being around a lot of people who looked like me, that loved me, and I felt that kept me safe. But again, you look back in hindsight and you're like, well, a lot of it probably wasn't the best, but it was a part of who I was and who I am to this day. So.
Great.
And I was going to say, like, so you're kind of almost in a sense, like when you're younger, ignorant to like kind of what's all going around you.
Never do.
Like me and my brothers, we used to always go to McGovern Park and we'll go to Stark Park as well. But we was going to Stark Park, which was not like, our mom didn't know about that.
No,
right?
my granny did. We just had to be home before the lights came on. So we had the freedom. I mean, we would be on the city bus, and if she hear this to this day, she'd be like, what? We would be all over the city. Like we were just, we explored. JCPenney's used to be on like 99th and Silver Spring or something. We would just be like wherever. We just explored the city, just going. And my brothers, they followed wherever I went. They're like, oh, she's saying it, so we got to go. But yeah, I loved my city back then. I did. And I love it to this day. But I loved coming up in Milwaukee.
But now you're just a little bit more aware of like some of this, like, okay, it's probably some of the stuff I did back then wasn't the same.
Just because of exposure, right? I didn't have exposure back then. And so leaving at 17, I got exposed to the world and I was like, wow, right? Black people look different. Success looks different. There is possibilities. But when you're a child and you grow up in a space where Black people aren't put in a position to win most of the time, you get used to that. And so I don't know if this is a fact that my mom would like me to say, but my mom was in a gang when I grew up, right? And so I seen a lot of things. And so we didn't have a lot of fear because we grew up around a lot of things that showed us how to handle things in a very inappropriate way with officers in the room. And so again, I just grew up like a fearless young girl that just was ready to take on the world in any type of way. And I do say the best thing that did happen that probably saved my life was leaving for school to see that there was other opportunities.
Yeah, because, you even find that when you leave, and I remember, because before I was an officer, I worked at a not-for-profit for teenage males. And even when they would go off to school, it's different how they address each other, even than you do on the block. Because and I grew up, certain areas down in Chicago. And then how you do the head nod, you walk past, but then you get on campus somewhere and they'll say, hey, my brother, how you doing, my brother? How you doing, my sister?
Yeah, first time they start saying my king and my queen, I'm like, what is this? What?
Yeah, it's even how we address each other, and it would be great if we could bring that energy into the spaces where we live at home. That would be great.
Yeah,
that is so true.
I agree.
And then I love you talk. I know you're big on like the limitation aspect, and like you understand that society does try to put a limitation on not only us as minorities but especially women, and you use your voice to be a power and to show women that there's no limitation. Right. You're able to accomplish everything. Why is that?
So I was a teen mom. I have 2 girls. I had my first daughter my senior year of high school. So college was never in the plan. Leaving Milwaukee was never in the plan. So I'm a big component of mentorship. I'm a big component of lending a hand back, right? Because that was what was always given to me. And so my mom had me at 17. I had my daughter at 17. And the goal was just survival. Like, that's what I knew. And it was my English teacher from my freshman year on up, which I didn't like her at the time. She just stayed on me. Like, I was always smart, but I got into a few fights every now and then. Every now and then. And so it was her. And if those of you who ever went to Madison High School, you would know a coach named McRae, Coach Mac McRae. And those two stayed on me like they were my parents. And so anytime I got in trouble, they would pull me. Nope, she can't get suspended. She'll sit in my class all day. And I remember at one point her asking the question of what's next. And I was just like, I don't know. And she was like, well, you need to figure it out. And so for my whole probably junior year, she would have me come in and write. And I fell in love with writing. Wow. Like, that was my punishment, right? So it would be like, no, she's not going to get suspended. She's going to do work all day. And I realized that how great I was at expressing myself, because that wasn't something that was celebrated in my household, right? You kind of maintained. And she was just very smart and articulate of how I was writing. And I remember one time she asked me what would my future look like. And that was the same paper that I used to actually apply for college. Wow. And so things just happened. Like, it was never planned, didn't even know that college was a possibility. I'm first generation everything out of 5 of us. And that was just kind of how it happened. Colleges came and I was like, this is not for me. I already have a daughter. And she was just like, well, let's see. And so she helped me to apply for schools, helped me to apply for financial aid. And I remember I got accepted into quite a few schools. And it was so surprising. And I was like, what, me? And a lot of them were in Milwaukee. And it was 2 that accepted me out of state. And I was scared. I didn't know. I was like, nope, I'm going to stay in Milwaukee. And I was actually going to go to UW Milwaukee. And one of my really best friends to this day got accepted at the same school out of state. Okay. And she was like, if I go, you go. And that was kind of how, right? Again, when you grow up in just kind of the space I did, I was allowed to be very independent in my choices. And I remember my mom saying, whatever it takes, like, we're just going to make sure it happened. And so she agreed to help me with my child. And I left when my daughter was 6 months and I went to college. Yeah. Wow. And that's what changed the trajectory of my life. Yeah.
That's so beautiful, honestly.
Yeah. That's beautiful and a blessing.
Yeah, a blessing.
Yeah,
again. You never know until you look back and you're like, wow, if I would have never left. Yeah.
So Dr. Curtis, in high school, 15-year-old Shakkiah. Did you know at that time or had some idea what you wanted to do? Like when you got older, when you went to college or as a career, or was it like you really didn't know? Because I know, now you're into, wellness and helping others. But did you know at that time?
I'm not going to say I knew. Like, law was always something that was in my mind. Fashion. I loved clothes. I love being able to express myself through clothing. So those were 2 things of like, how do I make that happen? My mother was a big person on making sure we had. And so my goal was like, how do I make money? Like, I only cared about making money. I was the eldest of 5. I had my first job at 14. Shout out to Lena's. They gave me my first job. And from that point, when I discovered that money was a tool, I was like, I have to figure out always how to make this. And I fell in love with business, not understanding what business was, but knowing I was like, I have to figure out how I can build, because I figured out that when you work for people, like, you have to do the things that they're telling you to do. And I was like, I don't like that part. I like the money part. And so I knew it would be something in the space of building. I just didn't know what that looked like for me. But yeah, so I've worked since 14. I've always wanted to create and have, but I had to discover what that looked like for me.
And then, so when you talk about money, right, it was almost like a driving force for you to kind of like, okay, you understand you need this, like say it's a tool. But I think sometimes too often in the world, a lot of people like to use money as like their top priority. Like that's their idol in a sense. And I know you talked about your 3 non-negotiables. Okay, we're gonna get into that. Okay. I know coffee is one of them. Yeah. Prayer and devotion.
Oh, you did your work.
I did some research. Prayer and devotion is another, and then fitness was also another one. With you having such a passion for fitness and having a passion to be successful, how do you make sure that you don't allow those passions to become your idol?
So, again, being exposed and leaving, I'm a person that asks a lot of questions. I've never been fearful of stepping into new things. So if you ever see my resume, I've never been a traditional student, never been a traditional person. I've done a lot of things that have given me a lot of experiences. When I left and went to TSU, I met a lot of different people that looked like me. And a lot of those women were my professors. And I seen what success looked like very differently and realized it wasn't money, but it was resources. And so I had to change the definition of wanting money and figuring out, like, how do I gain this freedom for resources, right? How do you build a network? How do you create these opportunities to produce more opportunities? And so I stopped looking at the money and I started looking at, I need to create opportunities. And what did that look like? And so with that, I fell out of love with making money and said, okay, now I need to know, like, what can I do to get in this room? What can I do to be at this table? What can I do to know this person? And that became my driving force of now it's about proving who I am. It's about proving what I can do. It's about proving. And that later changed too. But it went from money till now, it's a different ball game when you understand what success truly is.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. What got you into wellness? How did that path begin?
So I played a little basketball in high school, ran track a little bit until I got pregnant. The older I got, though, it became therapy without me knowing. So I got addicted to working out. It was my coping mechanism through a lot of the traumatic experiences. And I just always felt like I was a superwoman when working out. I tell people all the time, like, my biggest ideas that have been the greatest return always came on a treadmill, right? Because the freedom that your mind gets when you work out. So some of the things that I learned is your brain gets to breathe, right? A lot of times we never get to breathe. Our brain doesn't get that break because we're consistently, right? You get 30,000 thoughts a day, like your mind is constantly going. And so when the body gets this activity, it gets to breathe. And so I always used to feel a relief when I worked out, and I didn't know why. So I got really addicted to wanting that high and they call it the runner's high. And it just turned into where I was like, I have to have this feeling like every day so that I can continue to do whatever. Again, it was coping, and now it's just a lifestyle.
I assume the meditation goes along with
it
giving
does.
your brain a chance to breathe.
It does. I'm a very overthinker. I think a whole lot.
Same.
And so, right, one of the practices that I learned in therapy was how to calm myself. And that's a discipline, and a huge discipline. And I really wanted to be able to discipline myself in that. And so I would practice, and I would fail, and I would practice, and I would fail. And so I was like, this is going to be something I do every day, no matter what. And it just became one of my non-negotiables. And so every morning I wake up, when that alarm clock goes off at 3:15 until 4, like, I'm hearing, I'm listening. What is my body feeling? What is God saying? What is that? Because that's probably the only time in the day that I'm going to get the stillness from my, to even hear how I'm feeling that morning. So, yeah. Yeah.
The challenge is to take that off the cushion.
Yes.
And to take that into everything
that you do. And that's the challenge. Yeah.
I was going to say, what's hard about speaking to such an amazing guest is that I'm trying to be like a student, and I'm trying to, like, take all the information that you're coming in, but also like still engaged in the conversation, right? So you talk, when we talk about working out, and I'm not sure if you're the same way. I usually think people who work out, they're usually a habit of, like, they love a routine, right? They have a routine.
I'm very routine.
Okay, you are too.
I'm very routine.
Okay, so there was and you talked about how when you start working out, it came from a place of coping, and it was kind of the same thing for me. Going through a tough time, and, like, I just needed something to do at that point, and working out, came that advice for me to use. But you get into the habit, you get into the routine of doing things over and over and over again. And then there was something that happened to me where I had to take a month off from working out. And then, so now my whole routine is thrown off. Now I'm trying to get back into it. And I find it being a struggle and challenging at times. Have you ever experienced that where your routine was thrown off? How did it make you feel? And how did you get back to that point when you were able to find that routine again? Or even if it was a new routine?
One time only because I was going so hard that I exerted myself to the point where I ended up in the emergency room. And that's when I realized it was coping versus working out. I think I ran for like 4.5 hours straight.
You said what?
Yeah, it was like a craziness, a part of my life. And I was at the gym and ended up in the emergency room. But again, so many things are happening that I wasn't dealing with, right? That it became that. But just to kind of fast forward things. So I have this patent method called the DRE method, which is discipline, routine, execution. And so for me, I'm a very militant, very regiment person because, again, very overactive brain. That if I don't move in a structure, if I don't move in a routine, then I spaz, right? Like, because so many things happen in my world. I'm a part and responsible for so many things that it is my safety to move into a routine. And so I don't allow that to fall off. And that was how the non-negotiables were born, to keep me moving in this space, right? People who are in my circle know me. If it's not on a calendar, I don't do it.
Okay.
If it's after 9 o'clock, I'm in the bed. My phone goes off, right? I am one of those people, it's DND. Do not disturb, right? And my mom and my granny hate it. But I have to, it's this boundaries that I have really, really had to create to create a safety, right? For just the protection of myself. Other than a Saturday, you won't see me out or about. And Sundays I rest after church. And so my life is very, very militant, which for some people could be boring, but for me has created a lot of success. But has allowed me to stay in a space that keeps me grounded while still growing. So for me, I can't. And it sucks sometimes, but you know.
I was gonna say because boundary that's a word, and I think that's something that that I have to work on also is setting boundaries, not only for myself but with people around me. Was that difficult for you to set that boundary? I mean, obviously now it's always kind of been there, but was there a point in time where you struggled setting a boundary? And also, do you ever allow room for flexibility?
So the flexibility part I'm still working on. Okay. Right? In my personal life, that is a huge factor because when you're not flexible and you have people in your life, they're like, come on now.
Right.
Yeah. So yes and no with the flexibility. It's very hard for me. We got to plan flexibility, right? I got to be like, if you need me to be flexible Thursday, tell me the time so I can add it on the calendar. But therapy helped. So I've been in therapy. The height of COVID forced it, right? With everybody else in the world shut down. And therapy taught me boundaries. It taught me how to be okay with what works for me. And because it works for me, I can't apologize for it, right? Because it is what keeps me in a safety zone for myself. I don't apologize for living in a routine. I don't apologize for not being as flexible as I should be. I do understand that I sometimes have to be. I'm a mom. But when I think about what keeps me in a space that allows me to continue to accomplish, that continues to grow, then I have to stay there. So
that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I'm just the total opposite. I think the flexibility, I think I'm too flexible. I think I need a little bit more of this. I do.
But I am not the fun friend. I'm the very planner. If it's not on the vacation-wise, people be like, I can't. Be like, well, it's planned. We take a nap at 12:30.
And that works. That works because you need
you need both sides.
You know both sides.
Yes. And my best friend, she'd be like, I can't do it. And I'd be like, I can't do you. Okay,
oh my goodness. But I definitely struggle with the boundary aspect. Or because I'll say when it came for me working with the gym, I was so routine. I was like, okay, Monday through Friday, I'm going to the gym. Family would hit me up hey, we're going to the movies. Want to come? I'm like, no.
But that's why I do it in the morning. So I'm at the gym at 4 to About 5:45, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, so you an
so
early
I don't
bird.
have to. It doesn't disrupt my day.
Gotcha. Okay, no, that makes sense.
So you're a morning person.
100%. My alarm clock goes off at 3:15 every day.
3:15.
Hence the coffee.
Oh, at least 3 times a day. But my first cup, my first hot cup is in the morning.
You know, it's funny. My dad, one time, I always share this story, but he might. Oh well, it is what it is. He told me one day, he's like, "Hey son, you mind going to Starbucks and give me some coffee?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." He's a huge coffee drinker. I don't really drink much coffee, but I'm like, "Sure, I'll go to Starbucks and get you some." He said, "Yeah." I said, "What do you want?" He said, "Yeah, let me get 7 shots of espresso." I said,
that's about $15.
I said, "Pops, do you need 7 shots of espresso?" And no, that's what he do though. That's his non-negotiable. It seemed like.
No, I was just going to say, Dr. Curtis, tell us a little bit. Again, I came into Discovery of Light of you through Spin MKE and a feature that was on that. Tell us why that is so important to you and it's so important to the community.
So I wanted to be able to offer something that is considered, so any boutique fitness is considered luxury, right? Because you have to have disposable income for it. So a lot of times those places are expensive. So I got to travel and live in a lot of places, and I fell in love with spinning just because on the bike, it challenges you every single time. You never can get on the bike and it's going to be the same. And so it's just like running. And I remember coming back home when COVID started and I couldn't find a spin studio that played hip hop music. I can't work out to like techno, Taylor Swift. I tried, it just doesn't work. And I couldn't find a place here. And that was kind of how Spin MKE was born. And then it was not affordable. And I remember saying, I need a space that I can go to, but I want to see people who look like me, right? Because you go to these places and you don't see a lot of people that look like you. And that also takes away from the culture because you're like, I need to look over and they know what I'm feeling. And other people like, hi. And I'm like, right? And so that was how it was born. I wanted it to be accessible. I wanted something in my community that was different. I wanted to offer something that was non-traditional. And so she was born to create culture, community, a space of wellness, but also make it affordable to try something outside of just going to the gym.
Wow. So, I love that. I don't know if we have enough time, but I'm going to do it anyway. We'll see if he can make it work. But I need to ask a question, okay? Because we have a question of the day, and my question is going to come from one of your old videos. Okay. Like I did my research 7 years ago.
Oh, Jesus.
And you were talking about women knowing your worth. Why is that? Like, speak about that real quick, just to the women out there.
For a long time, I didn't know that, right? I think as we grow, especially women of color, you don't get the opportunity to know your worth at a very young age. I didn't meet my dad till I was 14, so that was part of it. And being raised by women, you're taught to be very strong. You're taught to be very independent. But one of the things that was missed was my value and what that looked like. And so I allotted a lot of things to happen in my life because I didn't understand the power that I carried. And it took for me to go through a lot of experiences to realize that if I would have known my value, I wouldn't allow those things to happen to me. And it was in those moments where I was like, okay, I have to figure out who I am. What do I offer? Like, why am I here? And as soon as I call that my superpower, as soon as I got into those spaces, a lot of things that I allowed, I stopped. From the people, the places, and the things. Like I stopped because I was like, those things no longer service me. I have 2 girls, right? A 22-year-old and a 14-year-old. And they have to know their value so that they don't sell themselves short in any area of their lives. And that just became a mission for me. And so the work that I do outside of Spin, TPH, the Pink Hustle, that's how she was born. And it's a she. That's how she was born because I focus on women leadership development and helping women build and win. And that's why my studies was that in my doctoral studies of data. What does the data show? What does the science show? And then how do we add that emotional human intelligence to that to create these frameworks and these systems that create this light? And it's not a lot of us. It's not a lot of brown and black women who get to live in this light of freedom every day. And our values questioned in every room, right? Somebody asked me, why'd you get your doctoral degree? I said, because I wanted to be in every room. I wanted to be at every table and I didn't want to have to be questioned of the why. And so to answer the question, it becomes your superpower and you no longer settle. right? You go after what is yours. And so I have no problem with asking for what I deserve and then walking away from what I don't. And so that is why it's important.
It's beautiful.
That is beautiful. Dr. Shakkiah Curtis, thank you for using that superpower to uplift others.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, and where can people reach you?
So on all social media sites, Dr. Shakkiah Curtis, the spelling, S-H-A.
Go ahead, do it for us.
KKIAHCURTIS. You can visit Spin. Come spin with us any day of the week. Sundays is Gospel Spin, and that's SPINNMKE.com. If you want to be around other women who are building and winning, if you want to bring me into your organization for any workshops, you can go to thepinkhustle.com.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. That is the wrap for our show, episode 18, we said.
Episode 18.
Thank you.
It was an amazing episode. I thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And to the listeners out there, y'all have a great and a beautiful day.
We'll see you next time.
All right. God bless.